I want to give a quick shout out to all of my patrons. Thank you so much for all of the continued support. Hey everybody, so last month I released a video that showcased the top 20 fantasy series that statistics say that you will enjoy. So this video is the opposite of that. This is the top 20 that statistics say you will not enjoy. So in this video, I've accumulated a huge amount of data where people simply tell me whether they like a series or dislike a series. And I'm going to show you the top 20 series based on a percentage of those who've read it. So it takes out all the popularity and just shows the ones that people don't enjoy the most when they give them a chance. So starting at number 20 with 73.81% approval is Night Angel by Brent Weeks. I was going into this series thinking I was going to like it a lot because I liked other Brent Weeks books, but yeah, this one just didn't work for me at all. So I'm definitely with 27% or so of you that don't like this series. Not a crazy amount, so there's a better chance you're going to like this than not, but this is a series about an assassin that grows up to be like a super good assassin. I really just didn't like the writing style. I felt like there were some kind of weird parts to it. Nothing really appealed to me, but yeah, most of you like this, but yeah, we're going to drop off this pretty quick. So number 19 with 72.46% is Rhaenyra by Michael J. Sullivan. This is a very long series broken up into, I think at this point there's 4 different sub-series. The one most people talk about is Rhaenyra Revelations, and this is about 2 best friends. One is more like a thief and one's more like a traditional warrior class, but they are trying to uncover this mystery, and it's a really fun, almost like an epic fantasy story that ends up unfolding over time. You don't feel like it's out of the start, but it turns into that. I'm actually rather surprised that this one is in the top 20 least favorable, because I got the impression that most people like this when they read it. But maybe a lot of the people don't like the future series in this, and that drives down their score. I'm in that bunch. I find every sub-series of this becomes weaker than the one before it, and I end up just kind of looking at this going, Michael J. Sullivan, either go back to the things that made the first series so wonderful, or just go write something new, which I don't think he's going to do. I asked him about this recently in a live stream, and he said he's just kind of going to keep doing Rhaenyra, but hope it kind of turns around eventually. So at number 18, maybe my biggest surprise here at 70.56% is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. Maybe I shouldn't be that confused about it. I know it's the most popular series on this list by a long shot, because it's one of the most popular series of all time, and it's got the huge television show, Amazon show, that's crazy high budget, that is kind of controversial in terms of people that like it. But I hear a lot of people that don't like this. I happen to love it. It's not like one of my top favorite series of all time, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, especially as it went along, and especially when Brandon Sanderson took over. I like the tightness of it. But yeah, a huge, long, epic fantasy can drive some people away. And a lot of the sexist kind of themes in this, kind of creepy kind of scenes in this can be kind of weird for people. And it's got 3 books, but 3 books that are kind of known for not being great. And those are very long books, and it can drive a lot of people away from a series. So, before we move on to the rest of this list, I want to talk about the sponsor of this video, Campfire. Once upon a time, a reading platform was created and stories came to life. Readers reported fearsome dragons in flight, monsters emerging from the depths, and mysterious spirits entering our world. Campfire is where you can enjoy your favorite genre fiction through an interactive reading experience right in your web browser. Discover new reads and unlock exclusive bonus content like short stories, world lore, and character profiles as you progress through each book. You'll explore faraway worlds, swoon over star-crossed lovers, and embark on epic quests, all waiting for you just beyond the page. Save stories to your bookshelf with custom collections, and join a community where you'll support authors with higher royalties than anywhere else. Create your free account and choose the genres you like to read, then cozy up with a new book. Campfire is where stories come to life. Click the link in the description to learn more. So, moving on with the rest of the list, with number 17 at 70.21% is The Book of the Ancestor by Mark Lawrence. The first book in this is Red Sister. This is one that I read and I did not like very much. I thought it was okay. It's about these attacking nuns. That is a kind of wild concept, but they're going to this school to be like these battle nuns. And yeah, it's got some interesting writing. I don't mind Mark Lawrence so much as a writer. Some of his plots get kind of strange, though. In this one, I had a problem with like this large middle section that was like an extremely long training montage that I felt like should have been like 50 pages, but was several hundred pages, and it totally brought me out of this story. Now, the end of the book I found to be rather enjoyable, enough to where probably at some point I'll end up picking the next one. I think it's called Gray Sister. I could be wrong. But yeah, it's Mark Lawrence is going to feature later on in this video as well. A lot of people love this guy, but yeah, definitely some books that other people don't. Number 16 is, with 69%, is His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman. This is one of, if not the only series on this list that I have not read. The first book in this is The Golden Compass, which I think they made a movie out of. This is a more YA, or is it like teenage fiction? I don't really know the term for it, because I don't really read these kind of books. Everyone tells me that I need to give them a shot, but every time I end up going back and reading these, I end up thinking to myself, yeah, I probably would have liked that if I was younger. I'm probably going to bookmark this so that I can read it to my kids or read it with my kids as they get a little bit older. But at this point in my fantasy journey, liking more adult kind of fantasy stories, especially kind of more grimdark stuff with very darker and mature themes, I doubt that I'm really going to like this one. So I don't know, probably not going to give it a chance until I'm doing it with my kids. Number 15 with 68.42% is Lightbringer by Brent Weeks. I think if that last book was never written, this would have a way higher score and it wouldn't be on this list. But that last book is kind of known. If you ever are to ask a large group of fantasy fans, like make a Reddit thread that says what fantasy series ruined the series with the last book, the number one answer you're going to get is Lightbringer. And the story is very fun, multi-POV story with several major characters. Obviously, it's multi-POV, but this very ingenious magic system that involves colors and the way that you can use colors to draft. You know that word means if you've read this. And yeah, it's a very fun kind of epic story that has very dark characters, very fun characters. And the last book, I agree, it wasn't great. I liked it more than most people did, but it brings up these weird religious themes out of nowhere. They might have worked if it was brought up earlier, but it just like randomly, it's like the author found Jesus when he was writing that last book, and it just comes out of left field and leaves you wanting a different kind of ending to this story. Number 14 with 68.0% is The Divine Cities by Robert Jackson Bennett. Another one where I will agree with this group. I tried to give this series a chance. I think the first one is City of Stairs, and it had some interesting concepts, but it just kind of meandered. And I loved the book when it first started up. It's got this really, really interesting concept where, if I'm remembering it right, because I'm doing this without notes, but you had this very famous city that conquered the entire world, and they did it by the use of using gods and crazy magic, and then the gods like abandoned them, or they got killed by outside forces, and now everybody is like taking over the city and making them feel like they are punishing them, and it's just the city is in ruins because the gods are gone, and everything the gods did, like helped create buildings, is just crumbled, and now there's this mystery because you find out right at the beginning that the gods might actually not all be dead. Very, very intriguing concepts, but yeah, I just didn't really love the execution. Number 13 with 66.67% is Memory, Sorrow, and Thorn by Tad Williams. This is an older fantasy story. I want to say it was written in the 80s, maybe early 90s, but I think in the 80s. I tried giving this one a chance recently, did not finishing it. I didn't finish it. It was so far into the book that I didn't even do a review of it because I didn't feel like I gave it an honest review. I want to read it, though. I want to go back and read it at some point. Not soon, but eventually. Give it some space. Because everyone tells me that the payoffs are there, that it takes a really long time to ramp up. And that was my problem. It felt like nothing was happening. It felt like all these pieces were getting set into place, we weren't knocking them down, and not at the pace that I wanted. As soon as the story started to get interesting, at about a third of the way point, the characters then went on a huge, boring journey like a meandering kind of journey that I was just like, okay, I'm out. I need more. I need every now and then something interesting to happen, or at least interesting to me. And I didn't want to ride through this journey of these like enormous books to get to something that I was going to enjoy. So maybe somewhere down the line when I've kind of read through a lot of the famous ones and I'm like, okay, what next? And I'll get back to it. But yeah, not soon. Number 12 with 65.43% is Cradle by Will White. This one is shocking to me. Now, I am kind of known for kind of bashing on the final two books in this series, but I felt like I was one of the only people that did that. It felt like most reviewers actually liked that. Most reviewers love this entire series. This is an addicting series. It's the series that everyone tells you to read to start into progression fantasy. Progression fantasy is an almost video game style where the characters level up. They get stronger and stronger as you go along. It is hardcore addicting. I don't know a lot of people that didn't like this series when they give it a shot. So yeah, I'm rather surprised that about a third of people that read this don't even like it. So yeah, let me know what you think and why you feel this way. Is it because the end of the series kind of ended the way it did? Or did you not like it from the beginning? Because this is the first I'm hearing of it. So yeah, surprise for me. Number 11 with 61.9% is The Dark Tower by Stephen King. I totally get why this one is ranked where it is. I hated The Dark Tower. I did not like the first book. I absolutely hated the second book. I don't like Stephen King as an author, and I get why people like him. It's just a writing style that doesn't work for me. It's all about the characters. The plot takes second. Oftentimes there almost isn't a plot in a lot of his books, at least the ones that I've read, the fantasy-oriented ones, where it's all about just writing character depth. And the story takes a backseat. You know this because by the end of his stories, he doesn't know what to do with them, and he just kind of wraps it up really quick because he doesn't really even know the endings. It's like he goes into his stories just writing and saying, I'll let the words take me where they want to go. And that can be great for character depth. It does not work so good for cohesive stories, especially fantasy, where you need to tie everything together. And I hated everything about The Dark Tower. And everyone tells me that the ending of Dark Tower is horrific. And why would I continue a series that I have these feelings with and people are telling me what they've told me? If you love it, more kudos to you. I just don't understand it. Number 10 with 59.26% is the Licanius trilogy by James Islington. I liked the first book. I gave it a 4 out of 5, I think. It was good, very tropey. I felt like it could have been a much better book than it was if it didn't utilize some strange time jumping mechanics. Time jumping can be very cool, not in this one. It had all the classic problems with time jumping on kind of wrecking the logic barriers on, this doesn't work because if I don't want to go down like the paradox of why using time travel it never really makes sense unless it's perfectly explained. But yeah, it definitely wasn't here. But yeah, very tropey. And I've heard from everybody that the ending of the trilogy is like one of the greatest endings of all time. And it makes me want to go back and reread the first book and then kind of just pile through the second and third books. Eventually I will, because I want to feel that feeling that everybody has. I love great endings. And everyone says the same thing. But I guess a lot of people just dumped out after the first book like I did and said, yeah, it's okay. Or I guess a lot of people said they didn't even like it. Number 9, with 55.74%, is The Broken Empire by Mark Lawrence. This is the other Mark Lawrence book on this list. I thought the first one was okay. I did not like the second one. The first one is Prince of Thorns. The second one is King of Thorns. The final one is Emperor of Thorns. If you have any doubt about the progression that this character takes along his journey. It's written, you got this main character who's a horrible person, and it's written all in his perspective. And so to have a story written from the perspective of somebody with no redeeming qualities that isn't even really trying to be a better person is hard on the reader. It makes you not like the person, and you kind of got to like or at least root for or find some redeeming qualities out of the main character to these stories. And that's not him. He's just this ruthless guy that rapes somebody on the first page of the first book, which is not a great way to start a story. Maybe give me something else here, especially not if I'm a main character. And it's got these weird jumping mechanics where it's like, we're going to tell you part of the story, and then we're going to go tell you the history of it, and then the future, and then it's like, what's going on anymore? I don't even understand what's happening and why. And yeah, not a fan. Number 8 with 55.4% is The Dresden Files by Jim Butcher. Yeah, this one I understand why it's divisive. Now, people that love this absolutely love it. It has a huge fandom, and I get why. How often do you get to read mystery novels, like detective novels, in a fantasy form? Just this one? Maybe there's others, but certainly this is the big one. It's about Harry Dresden. He's a modern day detective, magic detective in Chicago, in modern day Chicago. And that's a cool concept. And he goes and tries to solve mysteries. And you get this bigger story weaved into it as it goes along. The audiobooks are wonderful. James Marston's, I think, is the guy that does the audiobook, and it's just perfect. It's got this old noir sound to it that just works awesome. I liked the stories, and then I kind of got disenchanted with them as they went along. I just never really liked Dresden. Not nearly as bad as I didn't like Jorg from the previous series, The Broken Empire. But I just didn't really like him, and as it went along, I liked him kind of less and less. I think I listened to him too much back to back. And it just kind of burnt me out. And then eventually I dumped out of it, like at book 10 or so. I dunked out at the book that everyone says is the best. And if I didn't really like it, I was like, well, then what am I doing here? But yeah, I get why people like it. But I'm also not shocked that around half the people that read this don't like it. Number 7, 55.1% approval is The Witcher by Andrzej Sapkowski. This has gotten enormously popular due to the video games, especially The Witcher 3, which is one of the all-time great video games, and because of the TV show on Netflix that is very popular. But the books are, I feel like, the worst medium out of the three, which I almost never would say for something. The books are almost always the best medium for something. I think a lot gets lost in translation. I think these are Polish books that get translated over English. It's a bunch. So the first couple books are short story collections, which I thought were okay. And it's just about this guy who goes around trying to solve little problems for people that involve monsters. They'll call him, he kills monsters, or oftentimes tries to solve the problems they're having. And it's fun. And then the next books after the first two are a classic, continuation of a story along novel format. But yeah, I don't really know anybody that really likes these, so I'm quite frankly surprised that 55% like it, because almost everybody tells me they're not a fan. So I'm guessing even though only 45% said they didn't like it, that you get a lot of that 55 is not that they liked it, that they're just like on it. Number 6 is with 54.55% is Prince of Nothing by R. Scott Baker. And I recently read the first book on this, The Darkness That Comes Before, and I'm in love. I'm in love with the series. I love everything about it. It's one of the best books that I've ever read. I also get why a lot of people don't like this. It is a very dark story. It reads almost like a lot of history in it. It can be bland at times. I can't get enough of it. It's so good. The prose is just magical. Everything about it is just perfect for me. But it is bleak. It is extremely bleak. And you don't read it to have like fun. Even though like that sounds so hypocritical of me, because I knock books because they're not fun and I want a fun read. But yeah, this thing is dark and too dark for most people, I think. Number 5 with 48.91%. So now we're down to the final 5 that all have less than 50% approval. And it is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. I don't know. And yeah, the first book, I think a lot of people like it. By the time you get to that third book, it is bad. Now, I say bad. I'm going to put the disclaimer, bad for me, maybe not bad for you. But man, I can't tell you how many people hate that last book. It's got that same problem that I keep talking about with series, where you have a main character that is loathsome. No redeeming qualities out of this main character. I think that's the point. But how do I like a book when I hate the main person and the only point of view character? I found the plot to get cumbersome and odd and not logical. not logical in the sense of I followed along what was going along. It just didn't make sense why it was happening. Just weird decisions by everybody. And yeah, hated the character. Number 4 with 45.71% is The Nevernight Chronicle by J. Kristoff. Now, I really like J. Kristoff. I like J. Kristoff, some of J. Kristoff's books. I gave Nevernight Chronicle a chance, being like, oh, clearly I like J. Kristoff's writing. And then I read it, and I wanted to die. It was rough. I mean, it's a very, very hard read to enjoy. It's got very bizarre sex scenes in it with children that are just awkward, and feels like clearly a guy wrote this and didn't know how to write women correctly. And the writing in general, I felt was just like such a huge step back from what I know J. Kristoff is capable of. I can't wait to read the next Empire of a Vampire book. It's one of the books that my most anticipated books next year by J. Kristoff. But yeah, I can't recommend Nevernight Chronicle to anybody. Number 3 with 41.3% is The Books of Babel by Josiah Bancroft. And I feel like everybody that's read this says the exact same thing. First book, really good. Second book, good. Third book, Fourth book, horrible. And I've never heard somebody that really liked the fourth book. Clearly they exist. This book doesn't have a zero score on Goodreads. I'm sure it's probably above 4. But it's rough. The story goes in a weird direction. The story's about this guy that goes to this tower for his honeymoon with his wife. And right when he gets there, he gets split off from the wife, and he spends this whole time going into the tower to try to rescue her. It's this bizarre tower. Every floor's got something different to it, different theme to it. And it's got very good writing quality to it, but the plot just gets so convoluted. The main character basically disappears towards the end of the story. It becomes about somebody else that you don't care about. And then the very end of it is just bizarro world, and it doesn't close off any lingering questions, and only just invites more and just leaves the reader very, very disappointed. Number 2 with 40.43% is The Broken Earth by N.K. Jemisin. This is a book, the 5th season, that I hated. I can't understand what there is to like about this. The series is the only trilogy to have ever won the Hugo for all 3 books. Mind-boggling to me. Like, what are people thinking that think... I get why people might like it, but people to love it, to people say like it's the best books of the year, is just crazy to me. I mean, the writing is so pretentious. I hate pretentious writing. I mean, it's so pretentious that the author thinks that writing in the second person for a large portion of the book is enjoyable, makes sense, and it's anything other than pretension. The weird usage of like bold and italics and large font just to try to drive a point home. It's like, just, you can use regular words. It's okay. The decisions characters make are so bizarre. I mean, the principle of the book is interesting. I found the first couple chapters to be like, oh, this is going to be great. And then it just goes nowhere. And the final book, with only 38.46% of people liking it, is The Locked Tomb by Tamsin Muir. This is Gideon the Ninth. Another one that I hated. I gave it 1 star because I hated the main character, among other things. I disliked more than the main character. The main character is not like loathsome like some of the other ones. The main character is just a total immature, snarky teenager. And I was one of those at one point. I had a lot of friends that were some of those, and I'm so embarrassed by those actions and I would never want to read a book about somebody like that. That's just sarcastic all the time. That's like the worst form of comedy. It doesn't work. So many confusing things about the way that characters are named. The plot is just convoluted. It turns into a totally different book at a certain point than what's kind of promised at the beginning. The very beautifully inventive beginning of this book just gets abandoned to tell like a murder mystery story, and doesn't make sense why. And I've heard from a lot of people that it only gets worse as it goes along. Now, a lot of people love this. Kudos to you. But for the other, 72% of people, is that right? 62? I'm not good at math. But whatever it is, yeah, there's a reason that we don't like it. So that is it for me. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think about in the comments. Were the vast majority of people wrong on this? Or what did people miss that really should be on this list? Let me know. I'm interested for your thoughts. And as always, happy reading to you. Thanks again to all my patrons, with a special shout out to my Ascendant tier and Librarian tier patrons. Anna G, CJ, Doust, Darren, Gregory, Jonathan, My Book is Lit, Nathan T, Nev's Book Channel, Orthodoxia, Ron Reich, Russell, Ryan L, Sydney Baker, Tahir, Anna, Andra, Angelo, Blair, Brock, Evan, Fanixan, Harry B, Joe, Kat Mick, Maria, Michael Sugarman, Sky, TW57, Wacky, and Zion. Thanks for sticking to the end of this video, and if you want to watch some more content from my channel, click over here and I've got some good videos for you. Thanks so much.